Tractor rollovers are the leading cause of tractor-related accidents and deaths. Tractor rollovers account for 44% of all tractor accidents and injuries. So in order to avoid tractor accidents, we want to keep a few key considerations in mind. So in this video, we're going to talk about those considerations, things to be aware of, and things to avoid in order to stay safe and to keep the tractor upright. Most tractor rollovers are related to the center of gravity. So the center of gravity is essentially the point up and down and side to side on the tractor where there's an equal amount of weight above that point and below. And why this matters in relation to tractor rollovers is that when that center of gravity point gets out beyond your stability line, where your tires are in contact with the ground, there's more weight above your stability line, which is going to cause the tractor to roll over. So we often see farmers driving around with their bucket elevated up in the air. And this is done so that the farmer can see under the bucket and so that it isn't sticking out quite as far. But this has really serious effects on the center of gravity on the tractor. So in this example on this tilt table that we have here, the farmer is driving around with the bucket up high with a heavy load up in the bucket. So we're going to see what kind of slope this tractor could drive on with an elevated bucket with a load in it. So we'll watch the backboard and see about how high we can get before the tractor rolls over. So right about that angle, that's maybe 15 degrees or so, maybe 20, and we saw how quickly that went over. So we'll try it again without a load in the bucket. So not quite as much weight up high to affect that center of gravity. So really not much difference, just a little bit higher of an angle before that tractor rolls over. And really what we want to see is if we drive with the bucket just about a foot off the ground, a couple feet, then that is enough so that we're not catching into the ground while we're driving, but we can still very easily see over that bucket. So with that, we're almost at a 45-degree angle, much steeper because that center of gravity on the tractor was much lower. So as you can see, lowering your center of gravity, making sure there's more weight down on the lower part of the tractor than up high is really important to reduce your risk of rollover. But we still want to avoid those steep slopes any time possible. And if you do get into a situation where you have to drive up and down relatively steep slopes, it's more stable of the tractor. There's less likelihood to roll over if you go up and down that slope as opposed to across the slope. One other factor to keep in mind is some of our older tractors, especially these tricycle type front ends on the tractors. They have a narrower stability line, which means that center of gravity point can get outside of the stability line much sooner. So you just need to be much more careful with our older tractors on steep slopes. Another cause of tractor rollovers is inappropriate hitching. So particularly when folks are working in the woods or they're hauling things like logs and lumber, there's a tendency to want to hitch higher up on the tractor, say to your rollover bar, so that you get the butt end of the log or what you're towing up out of the soil. But what can happen is if that thing that you're pulling gets caught up on a stump or a rock or a divot in the ground, then the tractor is going to continue to move forward and your pull point is up above where you're likely to roll over backwards. So what we want to do is always only hook up to our drawbar. So whenever we're towing or pulling anything, we should only be hooked up to the drawbar. This drawbar is designed so that if you get pulling, all that's going to do is pull your front end further into the ground and make you more stable. So in order to prevent rollovers, only ever tow things hooked up to the drawbar. When you're working around tractors, and there's a potential for rollovers, it's super important to have your rollover protective structure. So this is a bar that runs up over the passenger seat. Any cab tractor is going to have a rollover bar built into it, and some tractors just have the rollover bar by itself. This is designed so that if the tractor were to roll over, you'd be suspended between the rollover bar and the front of the tractor. If you have your rollover bar installed on the tractor, it's very important that you also wear your seat belt. So in rollover accidents where someone has had the rollover bar but not had their seat belt on, they've avoided injuries in 75% of those scenarios. In rollover accidents where people have the rollover bar and their seat belt on, they've avoided injury 97% of the time. So very important to have your seat belt on with the rollover protective structure. So to prevent tractor rollovers, it's important to walk the terrain, become familiar with the area that you're working so that you don't accidentally hit stumps or groundhog holes, rocks, things that are going to change the angle of the tractor and throw off your center of gravity. It's also important to work up and down the slopes of the fields that you're working on as opposed to sideways, and just avoid areas that are too steep for working on. Next, you want to make sure that your rollover protective structure is up and always in the upright position when you're working, and with the rollover bar you have your seat belt on. And lastly, you want to make sure that you're only ever hooking up to the drawbar when you're towing equipment. If you have an older tractor that was manufactured without a rollover protective structure, there may be some currently available programming. Contact the National ROPS Rebate Program to find out. They can provide a list of manufacturers for new, certified ROPS kits, and in some states where rebate funding is available, they may be able to assist with the cost of retrofitting your tractor. Visit their website at ropsareforyou.org or call 1-877-767-7748 to learn more.